Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is Bestinslot, and today we are going to do a little follow-up to our teaser trailer analysis. We are going to look at the full trailer for Jurassic World, which was released 2 days early for God knows what reason. Anyways, I am super excited. If you haven't seen the trailer already, and I know you all have because I got 10 trillion comments about it, it was insane the amount of comments I had when I woke up. I really recommend you go watch it. It's a very, very good trailer, and if you weren't already excited for the film, there's definitely some scenes in this that are going to make you a lot more excited. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers in this analysis. We're going to go through literally every single scene in the trailer. I've got something like, let's have a little look, 30 screenshots to have a look at, so it's going to take a little while, but we'll try to speed through some of the ones that don't really have much to offer this time instead of going on and rambling for too long. But yeah, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. Okay, so the film and these two are kind of linked. And as you'll notice, the quality of screenshot has gone up substantially since yesterday. This is our first look at the kid and his brother, who are obviously going to be the central children kind of characters in the film. I have a slight suspicion the older brother might die, because the little kid is definitely the main child kind of thing. She's leaning down. I get the feeling he's quite shy and quite introverted, because the mother, assumedly the mother or kidnapper, is leaning down and saying, "I'm so proud of you for going on this trip. You're going to have a great time." So, like, he's clearly very apprehensive about it. Maybe he doesn't want to leave home, or he's fearful of the dinosaurs. Maybe he's the one replacing Timmy and is actually doing some research into dinosaurs and has done research into the original park and worries it might happen again. Something like that. It'll be a combination or one of the two. It should be noted right away that both of these people are somewhat well-known actors. The woman on the left has been in plenty of things, all of which escaped my mind already, and the guy on the right was David Wallace in the American version of The Office. Fun fact, I know, David Wallace. Apparently his son's going to Jurassic Park. Who saw that coming? So, I mean, okay, that doesn't seem relevant, but it really hammers home that in the original films, they didn't really go for star quality in terms of big names. In this one, with Chris Pratt, who's obviously a rising star in the industry, Bryce Dallas Howard, I don't know much about at all, but I assume she's an up-and-comer of some description. In this, it's already just the parents, meaningless characters probably overall, is two pretty well-known actors. Anyways, so she finishes off by saying very nicely, "And if something chases you, run." Just to be a little creepy to her son, who's terrified. She says, "Yeah, if a dinosaur tries to eat you, run away." Great parenting. Next scene, we see a boat. And what this mainly does is confirm how many people go to Jurassic Park. One of the things was meant to be that the viewership or the visitor numbers are dwindling, but the images we're going to see certainly don't suggest that, so maybe we weren't quite right. Maybe they've changed that. I don't know. Either way, this really just confirms we're going to Isla Nublar for a start, which some people were asking about. Some people weren't sure if they'd made the park on Nublar or Sauna, and that there's still quite a lot of interest in Jurassic World. There's a lot of tourists approaching the island, and just in like one of these little cabin bits, we're seeing so many more people than we saw in the entirety of the first film. Next is just a Jurassic World intro thingamajiggy. We've seen that yesterday, so we're not going to talk about that too long. I have been told that this won't actually be CGI in the film. They just had to put a CGI one together for the trailer, which is good. Next scene is probably the best in the trailer, so... Oh, wait, no, it's not. I've completely misread my thumbnails. No, it's not. This is not the best scene in the trailer. This is a lot of people just standing in a crowd. Again, this just really reiterates just how many people are knocking about. I've just spotted this. Pretty sure that says Samsung, doesn't it? So we've got a little bit of corporate branding in there, some advertising, but it kind of looks like a visitor centre type thing. Assumably if it says Samsung on the front, it isn't. But it just really hammers home, for one thing, how many people wear this type of hat. There's a lot of these hats knocking about. That is a substantially far too large pen. Let's go ahead and make that a bit smaller. I'd like to be able to highlight things for you folks. So yeah. Give me a sec. Lots of hats. That's the important thing we're taking away from this image. too many hats to highlight. Let's put it that way. Too many hats to highlight. But there's a load of people. And we kind of see a hint that it's popular around the world as well. We've got Japanese text over here. We've got what looks Mundo Jurassico is presumably Spanish or Portuguese or something. We've got what looks like, I don't know, I'm not good with languages, but Chinese or something like that over there. Someone else here. There's lots of different sections, assumably, for people to understand things. We also have, and I've only just spotted this actually, a Spinosaurus skeleton type thing here. Either way, it's a vibrant, exciting, busy park now. Loads of tourists. Just kind of, like I was trying to reiterate in the last video, just like Disneyland. We've also got a little T-Rex skull thing here. So we've got loads of props and stuff like that. Very cool. And people, these guys here, specifically, seem to be officials. Because if you look on this guy's shoulder, he has a Jurassic World badge. So I'm assuming these guys, who kind of do blend in, they're kind of more, maybe they're helpers or something. Next scene is one we've already evaluated, just in slightly higher quality here. They're just driving along next to the Gallimimuses. People have had a go at the CGI quality for these. I think they look fantastic, personally, even in motion, but whatever. Yes, next scene. This is an exciting new one, just a river rapids type experience with dinosaurs. What more could you want? This is actually quite reminiscent of the scene from Jurassic Park 3, because they go down the river and there is dinosaurs standing at the side of the river, like an Ankylosaurus. And I think there's a Stegosaurus actually, and there's also a sauropod of some description. But as we've seen so far, the start of the film is really just establishing how well established this park is, how safe this park is, how many people turn up to this park. Every image so far is just safe and happy, and it's a good way. I'm hoping the opening 30 minutes is kind of like this, with some hint of possible future danger, because that way we get to see a lot of like the focus on this film is probably going to be on the D-Rex more than anything else. So it's good to at least get this opportunity to really experience like all the other dinosaurs at some point, just like getting to probably appreciate them without having to worry about them being eaten, essentially. I'm assuming we will get a scene sort of like in the original Jurassic Park where later on they run into the Brachiosaurus, and we could have a scene like that where in between getting chased by the D-Rex and such things, we see a quieter moment with one of the herbivores, like we did with the Triceratops, like we did with the Brachiosaurus. Next, simply people queuing up for the gyrosphere. Not the most exciting image in the world. It again shows just how busy the park is, though. The gyrosphere appears to be kind of like the new tour. I've not seen any hint of an actual tour vehicle. It's more like an actual park now, where you go and you get onto individual rides for each exhibit. So you'll get on a boat, or you'll get on the gyrosphere and you'll be taken around. But we can see at least 2 gyrospheres on the image. And then in the next picture, we again see this is the kid from the start and his brother riding around in the gyrosphere, which I've kind of started to accept technology-wise. But being able to go in around the sauropods is very, very cool. Very, very cool indeed. And I suspect they will play a part later in the film, and there is a hint that they do later on. Next image is the coolest one in the trailer. Boop! It's a Mosasaurus! How cool is that? It's essentially Disney World. SeaWorld. It's essentially Shamu, but Mosasaurus form. This thing here was a shark previously. It looked like a big shark as well. So I'm really hoping this isn't just to show off that they have a Mosasaurus. This is actually going to play an integral part of the film at some point. They have to go underwater. There is water later on. We'll see that in a minute in one of the screenshots. The thing looks awesome, and you see it in motion, and it's really, really... Bloody hell, what's going on with my throat? You see it in motion, and it's really, really, really cool. And the idea of turning a SeaWorld exhibit into a Mosasaurus type exhibit is very clever, I think. But again, loads of people. For those who don't know, one of the rumours we kept hearing, and I'm sure was confirmed at some point, was that the idea behind the genetically modified D-Rex was that the park viewership had started to dwindle. You know, less and less people were turning up to Jurassic World. So in an attempt to fix that, they created this hybrid mutant genetic dinosaur. But clearly there's 1 trillion people, unless the reason there's 1 trillion people is because the D-Rex has been added, because they've released a new dinosaur, and these are people who are now coming back to the park. Either way, Mosasaurus is super duper 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 cool, and I really do hope it plays an integral part in the film, because at the moment in the trailer all you do see it come up and grab a great white shark. I mean, it could easily kill some people here, although I imagine we see these boundaries here, I assume these things here, I assume these are electrified. Yeah, very, very cool. Hopefully it does integrate in some form. We've got like a train thing here that looks definitely take-outable by the Mosasaurus. The problem is, why would the Mosasaurus go mental and try to kill people? Yeah. Next is Bryce Dallas Howard looking at a helicopter. That's about all I've got to offer on this one. I'm not really sure why. The theory, it's either a higher up, like an InGen higher up. Is it even InGen? It's not even InGen anymore. I can't actually remember the name of the company. It's some oil company. It's either a higher up from the people who made Jurassic World, or it's Chris Pratt who's come in to try and help handle the situation. Anyways, next scene is all like, we've made more advances in the past 10 years with genetics than we did in the previous decade. Which doesn't make sense. 10 years and decade are the same thing. We've made more advances recently with genetics than we did in the past century with fossils. And it goes along and it shows you some eggs, and it shows you the amber and stuff. And I think it's Bryce Dallas Howard talking over the top of it. Actually, I'm pretty sure it is. And we'll see Wu in here somewhere. I assume Dr. Henry Wu is going to be kind of the head of the lab. I think Bryce Dallas Howard is the head of the genetic team altogether, or kind of like dinosaur creation and all that. But Wu will probably run the actual laboratory, and I'm sure we'll see him come into play in this kind of scene here. But the idea being, we've got genetic power now. Look at how fancy our new lab is compared to the old one. It is very, very high tech when you see the whole thing. Whatever. And then Bryce Dallas Howard is here, and she's looking happy this time in front of her little genetic boards and such things. Again, Samsung. But what she says here is basically, we have created the first genetic hybrid. They've just said, we have created the first genetically hybridated, which should be a word, dinosaur. And I'm assuming this is kind of 20-30 minutes into the film, and this is where things start to kick off a little bit. Maybe a little earlier than that. It doesn't seem... I didn't get the feel from it that it was a park numbers are dwindling thing. I think they would have mentioned that. I think if the park numbers had started to fall, they would have mentioned that in the trailer, and then use that as an excuse for this line or something like that. That's what I would have done anyway, but she's just saying, yep, we've done it, guys. We've created a genetic hybrid because we're stupid, stupid people who do not learn from our mistakes. Oh, bloody hell. Right, next scene. And then we get a little shot of a spine and some wires. Tube things. This is meant to be, assumedly, the spine of the D-Rex. It's definitely, this scene immediately follows the past one. They're going on about genetic hybrid, and suddenly we've got this big, heavy, sharp spine sitting in this big test tube thing. Anyways, Chris Pratt's not happy about the idea. Not really, to be honest. What's the next one? No, okay. Chris Pratt isn't that happy about the idea. They're both standing here. I mean, I don't know what his position is officially, but it seems important. I imagine what we're looking at here is the exhibit for the D-Rex. I think that would make sense. These things here kind of look like... you know when you go to a zoo and they've got big boards up that tell you information about the animal in that enclosure? Those might be something like that, or they might be control panels of some description. Either way, this is probably the D-Rex exhibit. As you can see, we've got very, very tall walls. They've taken a lot of precautions to try and keep it safe. We can also see on the wall here, we can see some claw marks up on the wall, which will be relevant in a second. But Chris Pratt basically says, you've created a dinosaur. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Essentially, that's the gist of it. So I very much got the impression from the trailer, Chris Pratt is kind of a hybrid between Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm. I suspect he's quite aware of what's happened in the past in this park, and whilst he accepts that the park has grown technologically and become more safe since then, that any messing too far, anything ridiculous like creating a new dinosaur that they don't understand properly, because how could they? I mean, they don't even understand the dinosaurs they have, generally speaking. How could they understand a hybrid? He's against the idea. So he kind of had the line about that doesn't seem a good idea, which is very much a Ian Malcolm type of thing to do, but then he's kind of the rough and ready kind of helper, shooty kind of dude, which is kind of a Muldoon, but kind of Alan Grant towards the end of the film kind of angle as well. He's kind of both in one, and I think that's necessary because Bryce Dallas Howard doesn't seem either. She seems more like Sattler, basically. A combination of Sattler and Wu. Anyways, next image is of the same place by the looks of it. You can tell by the slats. And we see more claw marks. And basically here, Mr. Chris Pratt will say as much, it's escaped. This is how it escapes. This thing, this D-Rex, assumedly quite young at this point. I quite like the idea of it escaping into the park and then growing in the park. Starting to take... Because assumedly it's got like hyper growth. Something they've blended it with... I think it's a combination of like a T-Rex, a Velociraptor, a cuddlefish, as we're going to call them now, a cuddlefish, and something else that does escape me right now. Can't remember. Either way, I get the feeling it's going to grow very quickly. Maybe it escapes as a young adult, because I don't think a huge creature is going to escape a park by this kind of method, where it's basically just crawling up the wall. I think it'd be too big to do that at full size. I mean, we'll kind of get a glimpse of it full size shortly. So I assume it kind of escapes as a young adult. They go out looking for it. It starts to kill a couple of people. It grows, they can't find it, and it comes out and it kills everyone. And all hell breaks loose. It starts to break down barriers, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a general full park malfunction. So I don't think we're going to see raptors and T-Rexes and stuff running around and eating other people. I think the D-Rex is going to be responsible for pretty much all the deaths in the film. Hopefully the Mosasaurus gets in a couple as well. I am trying to think about it. It seems the park is quite a bit more open though. So maybe the emergence of the D-Rex causes the other dinosaurs to react in different ways, and that causes problems. And I don't think we could have a Jurassic Park film if a raptor doesn't eat someone, personally. So hopefully we do see a raptor kill somebody, because it's just the way it should be. Anyways, there's a guy next to Pratt who you actually can't see here. There's a bone on the floor as well. But there's a guy next to Pratt who's like a supervisor or helper kind of guy, whatever. And he says, the wall is so-and-so tall. Do you think something could have climbed out? And Chris Pratt says, well, it depends. And he goes, depends on what, Mr. Chris Pratt? And Chris Pratt says, depends on what they cooked up in that lab of theirs. Basically, Chris Pratt doesn't actually... I'm going to have to stop. We're calling him Chris, okay? It's going to be called Chris. Chris doesn't know what this dinosaur is. I think he's been brought in as a dinosaur handler, Muldoon type figure. And then back in this scene over here, Bryce Dallas Howard has said, we've made a dinosaur, basically. And Chris Pratt's like, it's not a good idea. And then a couple of scenes later, obviously it's not a good idea. But he still doesn't actually know what they've created, because in this scene he says it depends what they cooked up in that lab. So I get the feeling Miss Dallas Howard over here is being quite secretive about the whole thing in terms of the combination of stuff in it, the kind of abilities this dinosaur is going to have. Next scene, we find a broken bloody helmet, which I'm hoping we'll get to see. But they're just walking about and they find a broken bloody helmet. I think this is Bryce Dallas Howard, though I can't tell. The hairy legs, so probably not Bryce Dallas Howard. It should be noted by this point we haven't seen the kids again, which kind of made me happy. I was hoping... It's fine to have the kids in there. I think it's Jurassic Park. I think you have to have the kids in there. And they'll be in trouble and they'll be in danger. But I didn't want them to be a super integral part of the film, kind of like they were in the past 3 films. I was hoping it'd be a bit more separate. And it does so far kind of seem that way. When you've got Chris Pratt and this woman leading the line, I don't think you really need to rely on the kids as much. But either way, we can see the sheer strength of this dinosaur. It's managed to crack and absolutely deform a building canvas, and somebody's had a very bad time. And then Chris Pratt says we're going to evacuate the park. Very cool scene, worth watching in the trailer. Maybe worth skipping the trailer if you want to retain your sense of whimsy about the whole thing, but then again you wouldn't be watching this video, would you? Chris Pratt turns around and says, we've got to evacuate the park. Which again isn't something that ever really happened in the old films, because you never had to. In the first, it wasn't really an evacuation because there was like 6 people. In the second, it was an evacuation. They all went there willingly and then tried to get out, but it wasn't like a big massive evacuation. People have commented how this is basically the plot of the first film, but I really do feel a completely different kind of atmosphere from it, and things like the evacuation and the mass crowds and this one super dinosaur kind of stalking everybody. it's kind of gonna change the feel of the film in a good way. I think I'm incredibly excited for this film. I can't bear it. I can't believe it's still, what month we're in now? Let's say November's over, so let's go December, January, February, March, April, May. 6 months away. 6 months until June. Yeah. 6 months isn't actually that long. Oh, maybe I can survive that. Anyways, so Chris Pratt advises to evacuate the park, and this is where Bryce Dallas Howard turns around and looks super sad like she did in the last episode of this kind of thing that we did. Anything I can say about the evacuation? I don't know. Evacuation of something like Jurassic Park, you'd think everybody's going to know what happened in the old Jurassic Park. It's going to lead to mass hysteria. It's going to lead to more problems. The fact that they're evacuating suggests, obviously, that this D-Rex thingamajiggy has escaped and is actually roaming around the park. And then we see a gyrosphere and a Mercedes. This is very Muldoony type thing, isn't it, really? It's just standing there with the rifle, skulking around the park, hunting down this D-Rex, which... The fact that it's managed to get to the gyrosphere suggests quite an open park, I think, which means there should be some interaction between the D-Rex and the other dinosaurs. And I suspect this might be where the kids were. The 2 kids we saw from before. I'm hoping. No. So, how it ended up here, because this clearly isn't typical gyrosphere kind of territory, it must have got knocked off something. But very reminiscent of Jurassic Park again, when they're going and they're looking for the abandoned Jeep near the Tyrannosaurus Rex enclosure. Boop. And then, same thingamajiggy. They're both here, Bryce Dallas Howard and... I don't know what that is. Oh, this is part of the gyrosphere. And they find a tooth, a big-ass tooth, embedded into the steelwork of the gyrosphere. There's not much to say about this, really. They're just looking for the dinosaur. It's kind of like it becomes a hunt while evacuating the rest of the park. They're trying to get everybody out, but they know they've got to bring this thing down because God knows, maybe it can swim, maybe there's not a way to evacuate people, whatever, maybe something's gone wrong so that they can't get people off the island, so if they don't take down this D-Rex thingamajiggy, and I don't think they'll kill it, I think they'll control it. It doesn't really feel like a Jurassic Park type thing to slaughter the dinosaurs. I don't think they've ever killed a dinosaur in Jurassic Park, except in Jurassic Park 2, where Kelly kicks the raptor off the roof and it falls through the glass and it lands on the spike and it gets stabbed through the middle. Is that the only time they killed a dinosaur in Jurassic Park? They shoot the raptor at the very start of the first film. Well, I say they shoot the raptor. There's like 20 guys in there pointing a rifle into a cage. Muldoon's going, shoot her! Yet, it still manages to eat this guy, and it takes like half an hour, and they're both, it's like this tiny cage, and they're just firing rifles into it and still don't manage to kill her. Whatever. Yeah. Moving on. So this is Dude. Don't know what his name is. He's with the ACU, which I think is the name of that company, and basically some blood drops onto him, and he looks up, and there's something there. So it's either going to be, this D-Rex has learnt... See, I quite like the idea, again, the D-Rex being a young adult, so maybe at that age it's small enough to climb trees and lie in wait, because remember, as it's part raptor at least, they'll definitely employ some sort of trap mentality like we saw in Jurassic Park 3 with Thingamajiggy, where they left this corpse and made it look like he was kind of alive, and then when Thingy starts to go down to rescue him, the raptors pop out, so they laid a trap. So maybe in this, the D-Rex, at least at a younger age, where it's smaller and capable of moving about like that, would be also capable of laying a trap. Either way, this guy's about to die. He's looking up at either a corpse or his own death. Anyways, at this moment, they start talking about the D-Rex, basically saying it's a hyper-intelligent hunter who will kill anything that it spots. So basically, it's trouble. There's none of this, you can't see it if you don't move kind of malarkey, which was rubbish, by the way. It's just, there's basically this dinosaur roaming around the park, killing everybody it comes in contact with, which again is not something we really had, and I quite like it. It's kind of like a big bad, kind of like a central villain of the piece, but those of us who love dinosaurs obviously won't view it as that anyway, because you can't really see a dinosaur as a villain. It's basically doing what it was genetically created for. Either way, this is Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. They run along a mountaintop and then they jump, whee, Sorry, it looks a bit strange. They jump down into this river, and they land in the river, and then suddenly, I think we've seen this from Chris Pratt's point of view, he gets pulled back very, very quickly. And it doesn't look like it was a particularly strong current or anything, which implies to me he's been grabbed. Something is in the river and got hold of him, maybe a young Mosasaurus or something. So, oh, it could just be the current, God knows. But the fact that they're in the river and such things hopefully suggests that maybe this is going to lead down to the Mosasaurus exhibit. Maybe they've evacuated most of the island, they've stayed behind, she stayed behind to try and control the situation because it's her fault, and he stayed behind because it's kind of like his job to control this thing. And now, at this point, they're basically just running away from the bloody thing because it's trying to eat them. And they jump down into the river, and maybe this takes them down to the Mosasaurus exhibit or something like that. Next scene is Bryce Dallas Howard looking scared. Next scene is Chris Pratt running away from the D-Rex. This is the only glimpse we get of it in the film, but you kind of get a feel for just how big this thing is based on the size of its foot compared to Chris Pratt over here. And again, over the top of all this, this is a hyper-intelligent dinosaur. It will kill anything it comes into contact with. They're just really slamming home just how dangerous this thing is. However, I have a slight suspicion this is near the end of the film, because if we look up here we see the claw marks we saw at the start, so that would suggest this is the original exhibit for the D-Rex. This is its original home. Now maybe it grew substantially larger than they expected and it's easily going to break out of this anyway. Maybe, I don't really know, but this feels to me like maybe at some point in the film they decided they're going to go capture the thing, trap it in its original exhibit. They're just trying to get it back into its exhibit. And it's definitely the original exhibit because we've got the claw marks. But it goes wrong. So Chris Pratt will run out here, whee, bum bum, and the D-Rex might break out somehow, might just run through the gate because it looks big enough to do so. It got out once as a kid, I'm sure it can get out again as an adult. Either way, they're definitely trying to keep it in there somehow. Or this could be the first time it breaks out. Or they could actually trap it here. We don't really know, but D-Rex in its original exhibit, but full, huge, humongous size. Chris Pratt runs away. Boop. Then we see this, which is a very nice image. But more importantly, kind of Regina looking, by the way. If there's a Dino Crisis film, I never actually thought about that. Dino Crisis film, she can be Regina. Cool. Anyways, the thing I liked about this one, right? So basically, she's standing in front of this big gatey thing, and it's opening up, but it's not that big. And this implies to me, at least a little bit, that we're not going to be dealing just with the D-Rex in terms of size. She's clearly like terrified of something. So unless this is when they're hunting for a younger, smaller D-Rex, then it certainly suggests they're looking for a smaller dinosaur of some description that is also a threat. Now, I don't know if it'll be a Velociraptor, maybe it's a Troodon or something like that. Maybe they're going to bring something completely new in. By the way, this seemed too small and personal to be worried about D-Rex kind of thing, you know? And we see that again in a minute. Okay, they're all running away. They've been told to evacuate. Assumably, I'm assuming something is coming around this corner over here. There's a lovely corner over here. My drawing skills just get better by the day. So something's coming over here. Everyone's running away, trying not to be eaten because they're all delicious and nutritious. This is the first time in the trailer since the gyrosphere from before that we actually see the two kids. And he's not dead yet, which is upsetting for me. But, I mean, I think they'll meet up with Bryce and Chris at some point in the film, but I do get the feeling they're more to just ground. Basically, we can see the perspective of Bryce Dallas Howard, which is the scientific perspective. We can see the perspective of Chris Pratt, which is the let's hunt this down, let's get this thing sorted kind of perspective. And those two come together and they drive the film. These two, I think, are more meant to put us in the position of the people who aren't in control, the people who aren't leading the film, the people who are evacuating or full of fear and they're just trying to get out of the park, which isn't an emotion we'd get from either Chris or Bryce. So I think they're just there to ground it more than anything else. We do have a slightly older kid for those who are older, because I'm pretty sure they're starting to realise that maybe not everybody associates themselves with children with huge hair like this little guy here. We don't actually see any hint of what is around this corner. It's definitely not down here because you spot it, but I think something's around here, which definitely suggests Mr. D-Rex has managed to break into the park itself. We don't really know how it's set out. I do get the feeling it's a lot more open. I think the idea is they've managed to temper the dinosaurs quite a bit so that the carnivores, even the T-Rex, assuming they have a T-Rex, is a lot more docile and less violent than ever was in the past. You know, they've got the Mosasaurus doing tricks, essentially. So that definitely suggests they've managed to calm the dinosaurs down somewhat. And we'll see an image. The final image of the trailer definitely suggests as much. So I think they've managed to kind of subdue the aggression of the dinosaurs. And what that's done is make them allow the park to be a lot more open than they naturally would. And then when things do go tits up, Mr. D-Rex, who assumably just isn't able to be controlled like that, is able to go on a rampage. Bryce Dallas Howard, screaming, run. Kind of Ellie Sattler, you know, when Sattler, she kind of looks like Jennifer Lawrence there, actually. Sattler says, run! When she's hobbling towards Grant, away from the raptor bunker. And she's standing between, I think these are meant to be, I don't know what these are, they're like fossil rock formation thing. They look very good with the red light outline. She's screaming at someone, assumably Chris Pratt, assume she sees something chasing him. It's just a typical little thing. But I like, she's clearly, compare her there to comparing her there. The difference is, you know, huge. And that's kind of like a middle ground. You can see she just starts sort of breaking down, getting more and more desperate, and stops being the scientist and more becomes just a survivor. And I do think the majority of the film will be about these two just trying to survive and control this D-Rex. Penultimate image is child looking scared. Not with his brother, must be said. I don't see the brother in this scene. I suspect Mr. Brother gets killed. But you see this shadow here. This kind of passes along that way. And we see like a very spiky spinal ridge kind of pass along in the shadow as well, implying the D-Rex. The problem is it's quite a small scene in terms of the environment. He's hiding in something, but again, this to me suggests possibly a young D-Rex, a younger, smaller dinosaur, because I don't think anything as huge as what we saw when it was chasing Pratt here would be capable of casting this small. I mean, look at the size of that foot. That foot is going to absolutely dominate this kid in terms of shadow, you know, never mind all of this. There's something else there. It's not just a D-Rex. It's either a young D-Rex at some point in the film, or it's got kids and they're roaming around as well, kind of replacing the role of the raptors. Maybe we'll see the adult D-Rex stalking around, doing its thing, and then we'll see pack hunter variants of the D-Rex in its younger form, because again it does have raptor DNA, so maybe that's how they're going to replace the raptors. Kind of like Godzilla, 1998 version, which had the same principle. Godzilla was huge and stumbling around and eating everybody, and then you had the pack hunters in that building via the baby Godzillas. Babyzillas, as they were known. Anyways, a final image is the one that really settles in this this idea of the dinosaurs have been controlled, which is why I think the park is as open as it looks, that the gyrosphere can move around like that, that you can go in between all dinosaurs, go down the river with the dinosaurs there, stuff like that, because the dinosaurs have been tempered in terms of aggression. Boop! We see Mr. Chris Pratt over here on his bicycle, on his motorbike, riding angrily, into the night, and the raptors aren't trying to kill him, quite clearly. Oh, well, it's probably not that clear, but the raptors aren't trying to kill him in the scene. They're actually running past him. Now, there's either two possible explanations, one of which is more likely, I think. One is that they're all running from something over here. Or two, because the scene before this, what we see is anyone who's seen greyhound racing, horse racing, basically, they've got the gates in front of the animals, yep. And then, boop, gate pops open, shoom, dinosaur or animal runs out. Usually animal, not usually dinosaur in our lives, but the animal runs out and runs around the track. In the scene just before this one, is well, like part of the same scene, we see these raptors all charge out of those gates, which suggests they've got like a dinosaur racetrack of some description for the raptors, and the raptors have been controlled so much that they're using them just purely for entertainment. The fact that they're not eating Chris Pratt means they've done something to them. They've tempered them, they've controlled the raptors somehow, or they've tried to. as we've seen in the past, controlling things doesn't really count that often. But I'm hoping, basically, Chris Pratt with his rifle and his team of raptors are going to go take down the D-Rex, because that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's about it. I really do recommend you go watch the trailer. It is fantastic and has me so excited for the film. The music is great. It's got like a typical score, and then the dum, 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 like this really slow piano version of the theme tune comes in, and it's beautiful and it's awesome and there's great imagery and it looks amazing, and I'm going to go watch it again.